So we have the pasuk Nosati Lo Malchim Memhei Lamed Chofyud from the word Mahalach Bein Ha'omdim Ha'ela. We have a definition. Omdim are Malachim. They have their shlichus. They are defined by their shlichus. They have to do just their shlichus, and they don't take initiatives and they don't grow. They are what they are. And Malachim are divided into categories. They're Malachim, Srafim, Orfanim. And each category has its place, its station, and that's where they remain. They are called Omdim. The Omed is the static person. In human beings, if a person is static, he's not fulfilling his goal, he's not fulfilling his purpose. In the same way that a baby becomes an adult, and when you're holding a baby in your hands and you say, L'Torah l'chupel l'masim tovim, you mean that there's going to be a process of growing, what we call steiging, of climbing from one level to another. Even an adult, it's a never-ending process. You're always climbing, you're always growing. And if you stop growing, then you're not fulfilling your tafkid, you're not fulfilling your purpose, no matter how great you are at the time. There's always more and better, and the tafkid of a Jew is to keep climbing that sulamutz of arts of Rosh Magia Shemaim. You know, the proof to it is a pasuk that we say in Kriya Shema several times a day in the parish of Tzitzis. The pasuk says, and that should have been enough. You see the tzitzis and you remember all the mitzvahs of the Kodesh Baruch Hu, and you do them. But then the pasuk continues afterwards, and it says, "Leman tizkaru va'asisem es kol mitzvosai v'yisem kedoshim leLokechem." But we already said that we'll remember. So what is Leman tizkaru? The answer is that each memory is for the sake of the next memory. Just like each Blat Gemara, when you make a siyum, you say Hadron Aloch, we're going back to you. And when Shlomo HaMelech became the Baal Chochma, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him Chochma, he made a great feast. And they say that this is one of the sources for his siyum, and everyone asks, but that's when he started and not when he ended. He got the tools to learn. Why did he make a feast when he gets the tools to learn? So they said, well, that's what a siyum is. A siyum, what you accomplished, is not nearly as important as the potential you now have. You now have to do it again and better because of your yesterday's accomplishment. Hadron Allah, we're coming back to you. And when we come back to you, we have the tools of yesterday's knowledge. But yesterday's knowledge is not the goal. The goal is tomorrow's knowledge. Uri'isem osa u'zachartim is not sufficient. It's leman tizkaru v'asisem es kol mitzvosai. And why is that? So the secret of that is the last pasuk, the last words of the pasuk. V'yisem kedoshim leLokechem. The reason why yesterday's u'zachartim is not enough is because in the striving for kedusha, we are always in a movement going upwards. And that's v'hiskadishtem v'hiyisem kedoshim. The v'hiskadishtem of any level, the sanctification that is incumbent upon us at any level, is in fact merely the step before tomorrow's kedusha, the v'hiyisem kedoshim. And that's why we must always know that around the bend and beyond what we are today, there's a better me tomorrow, a holier me tomorrow, and I have to strive for it. We also have this idea that even though there were steps in the Beis HaMikdash, there was one place, the Mizbeach, that when the Kohanim went up the Mizbeach, they were not permitted to climb steps. There had to be a ramp. And in some sefer it says, what's the difference between walking up steps and climbing a ramp? And they say something very fascinating, which is very relevant to this point of Aliyah. You can never sit still in Yiddishkeit. You can never come to a full rest. When you're climbing that ramp to the Mizbeach, even if you pause for a moment, you're still using your energy and you still have to be pushing forward so that you don't roll down the ramp. It's not like a step where you can be totally stationary because you're one with the force of gravity. Here, gravity will make you roll down because you're on an incline. So in order to be able to stay put, it looks like you're staying put, but you're really using up energy just to be where you are because that's part of the climb. A lot of times a person has to consolidate himself. A lot of times a person has to make sure that where he is not a fantasy, it's not a momentary fling. He's going to achieve a substance, a real thing. He's growing. So when that person grows, when he grows, he has to consolidate. The consolidating is standing on the ramp. You're not really coming to a rest. You're never saying, this is sufficient for me, meanwhile, and tomorrow I'll think about growing. I'm always growing, but I'm consolidating. So a person has to make sure that what he is now is real, but only to be able to then achieve the next level. And that's Shir HaMalos, and that's the Bryce of Reb Pinchas Ben Yored that the Sefer Mesilas Yesharim is based upon. All of these are saying something. There's always another step. There's Zahirus and there's Rizus, and there's Nikias and there's Tahara. There's always another step. And that's Viskadishta V'yisem Kedoshim. L'man Tiskru V'asisem V'skomet V'yisem Kedoshim. And that is the ramp that a person is climbing. That he's always in a state of movement forward. That's the Mahalchim that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to be. And that is our tafkid in this world. That we go from one step to the next step, only to strive and yearn to achieve even more.